Hello and welcome. It's me, Percita, and this is Percitas Paradox. So here we are. Thank you so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate you, your time, and effort here on joining me on this thing called YouTube. If you're new, I appreciate you and coming to join me today. And if you are an OG, you know the drill. Thank you so much, as always, for coming and bringing your support with you. If you have been coming to the channel more than multiple times, then let's just say this is your opportunity to hit the subscribe button. Also hit the notifications button so that you know when I post. And always remember to like, share, and comment at some point or throughout the video so that I know that you are engaged. So, speaking of engagement, what is happening right now? Well, today I just wanted to come on and jump on, tell you that I may, be a little bit kind of giddy a little today. This is the time of the month of February where I get to celebrate matrimony. It's been 27 years for my husband and I, and we've absolutely had the longest journey of all. So once I feel like you've hit some sense of milestones in your relationships, it's always fun to celebrate. And we do it on an annual thing as of late. Late being out of the 27 years, probably the last 8. And we literally like to get up and go and celebrate, of course, Valentine's Day, because that's just fun to just look for another opportunity to get more gifts and to also then come in and celebrate our anniversary, which is actually on the 18th of the month. So here we are. I am filming this during that week-ish towards the end of the month. So I'm not sure when you'll actually see this video. You probably see it during the week that I'm going to be traveling. But just to say the least, super excited. So what I wanted to come and talk to you about today was just this idea of loving people through it. And I say that because having the type of energy that I have had towards people, I realize I can be a little petty. And what I mean by that is that I really don't always want to allow people in, especially if I feel like there's been some issues with us. And I've spoken on this before, and I've made it very clear I just have a very low tolerance for anyone that I feel as if is not really demonstrating some sense of love and support and communication, right? But I'm starting to recognize that I really have to love people better. And by loving them better, it's by loving them through it. So my question to you is, are you loving people through whatever it is? So let me just say, the question is, are you loving people through it? And what I mean by that is you're just taking them for who they are and nothing more, nothing less. You're not really holding them hostage. You're not really resentful or irritated by it. You're not upset anymore at the idea that they're not who you want them to be. You're just understanding that you're loving them through it. Now, I don't mean you got to like it. And that's where it gets a little tricky for me. In my good years, I'm starting to understand that I may love you and not necessarily like you. And I may like you and not necessarily love you. And that's kind of an oxymoron. And people think, well, what would be the difference? When you're talking about something called love and love being so unconditional, you don't always like what the person is doing, but you do find yourself trying to find the ability to love. And in that love, it becomes a little complicated because I realize even when we try to tell ourselves that we don't have expectations, we do. And we still have an idea of what it is that this person is supposed to actually give to us, especially when we're trying to give back to them and trying to tell ourselves the entire time that we don't have some sense of expectation. But I want you to really embrace the idea that if you give yourself the ideology of loving the person through whatever it is that you may feel a disdainment about actually releases you, it gets a little easier and a little bit more focused on what love actually means. And when we're talking about liking someone, you may like something that they bring to the table. You may like something that they do for you specifically. It becomes a little selfish. You don't really want to say that, but it really is. Typically, when you like a food, you then indulge in it more and obviously focus on it more. So look at it in the exact same sense. But you don't always necessarily have to love it because it may not love you back. Thinking again of some type of a food, you may like to eat it, but it does not love the way it comes back into your body. Or I should say you don't love the way it comes back into your body, and maybe you gain weight or you bloat or something of the sort, but you like it. And in the immediate gratification, you want to embrace it. Well, I think some relationships are like that as well. And of course, in a society that we constantly talk about, everybody's our friend, and literally every title for any type of association or relationship at all tends to always run around this friend idea. And again, we already know that with the social media, mayhem that happens, everyone and their mother wants to literally be important and, come off a certain kind of a way. And I'm starting to understand that when you actually envelop this idea of loving and liking people through it, you actually start with yourself. You become very aware of not really trying as hard as we do to fit in or to solidify someone's expectations of who we are, you and I, individually. And then once we actually have that, we do better with the love and the like of others. So I'm starting to ask myself, am I loving others the way I need to? Meaning, am I loving them through it? I heard Sierra, the singer, if you don't know who that is, who's married to this guy, Russell Wilson. And apparently she was having a conversation with him. And the idea that they were speaking on is, how do you know when you're ready for marriage? And his statement to her was that if you're willing to marry yourself, you're ready to marry another person. And I thought that was interesting because it's kind of it becomes something that you can turn into as much of a positive as a negative, but I'm going to use the positive and say his point, I believe, was that if you really like who you are and then you learn to love the likes of who you are, meaning even the disappointments, the ups and the downs, it's easier for you to then love someone else because you understand that you're not perfect and everything doesn't manifest the way you want it to, but you still have to actually do whatever it is that you're dreaming to do or achieve whatever it is that you can, you're dreaming to achieve. But it struck me because I don't really think a lot of people think of that. I think when we're dating and when we're in relationships, we typically put ourselves in a position that the person's completing us. We don't really talk about actually coming whole and then the person then adding to it. You hear the metaphoric statements. I've heard a lot of cliches, little songs here and there. But the truth of the matter is no one's really pushing that. You hear a lot of, this person is my better half, or again, they complete me, or we're best friends, things like that. So I really think if we learn to love ourselves, of course, we'll love others better, but loving ourselves through it is different than actually loving ourselves, because even in that, you start to understand that you can wallow and be paralyzed by pain simply because you're in a position that you're not liking what you're doing. You love yourself, right? But you don't like the outcome of maybe your decisions or something that happens. And I would say that that statement that he was trying to make is leaning more towards that than the idea of just the overall general statement of you're loving yourself. So I say all of that because I really want you to ponder how much are you liking you, and then how much in that like have you learned to love yourself, to then perpetuate the question and answer it properly when I ask, how are you loving people through it? Are you loving people through it? Are you willing to love people through it? Do you desire to even try to love people through it? And again, the it can be a plethora of things. So we're not leaning on any specific. We're simply saying that you can do this thing called loving them through it without any expectations, without really liking what they're doing or how they're doing it, but still loving them. Loving them doesn't necessarily have a support line, which is where it gets tricky. Because if you're talking about somebody that you love who is a murderer, you don't obviously love what they've done or like what they've done, but you try to see beyond it and try to love the person even through it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you can do anything specific, but it does mean that you try to literally not judge. And that's where I think it gets tricky, because I think in the middle of us trying to love, we still find ourselves trying to judge. And we still try to tell ourselves that we're not judging, but we're judging. It's just what it is. So there it is. I mean, it's just kind of interesting. When I was talking to my husband, and we actually just said back to each other that we had been together 27 years of marriage. We've actually been together almost 30 years as a couple. It's kind of interesting because, one, I'm not that old. Two, you put yourself in a position where you start to say stuff like, I've been with this man longer than I was in my mother's home as an adolescent. And then you start to actually think of all of the things that you thought you knew that were true and factual 27 years ago, that have literally changed and manifested and, kind of transcended time and effort and energy through other relationships, through a lot of our friends that didn't make it, through their marriage. And, and again, don't get me wrong, it's not as if I have not to believe that time identifies flawlessness or some type of perfection, right? And if you really have been in anything for a length of time, you understand that there's a sway of ups and downs that aren't always discussed. So I say that to say that when you're really loving someone through it, you start to understand that there's going to be the ups and the downs, and you actually expect more of that, more so than the perfection of what you would assume you should be looking for, right? Because I was trying to say is that how many times have you literally told yourself, oh, I know you, right? Meaning you know yourself. But then you realize that you say more of you know the person you're with better than they know themselves, more than you say, I know me better than another person knows me, right? And you might say, well, what do you mean? Meaning I'll tell my husband all the time, well, I know you. I know you. You don't even know that about yourself. And I know you. Or he'll say it back to me. But if I actually ponder the idea of saying that about myself, I don't say it as often as I wish I did. I don't embrace that idea as much as I wish I did. Usually when you're angry is the time that you only perpetuate that idea of, you don't know me like that, or, you got me messed up, or whatever cliche you want to use. But I'm starting to learn that I want to use that statement to be in tune with myself more than I want to really be in tune with knowing the ins and outs of my husband. I feel in this time frame, it's really important to know myself and then to be able to showcase myself to him so that when he does make the statement, I know you, he actually does, instead of the thing that I'm perpetuating or the facade that I want him to see or anything of the sort. So again, the question is, are you loving your loved ones through it? Are you loving the love instead of the person? Are you focusing on the love and not the action, or not the like of the person? I'm petty. I'm working on it. So I don't know about you, but I'm definitely working on it. And I don't say I'm petty with a badge. I say it because the more I can put it in my face, the more that I can put it up front, the more that I feel like I'm gonna gnaw down at it and be better and actually do something about it. So let me rephrase it and say I've been petty, but I strive to not be petty anymore because it doesn't suit me, my goals, or my aspirations, nor does it suit the people that I love for me to be that way. So hopefully you have learned something today. The sun is coming in bright. It just wasn't in bright, so you see me squinting now. But keep in mind that all I want you to do is do 3 things. And those 3 things are live life authentic. It is crucial for you to be the best you can be. And the only way that you can start that foundation is by living life authentically. So do that solid for me. As always, continue to be as fabulous as you are. And again, we're going to go off and celebrate and have a good time. So I hope all is well with you. If it is not, hit me in the comments, hit me in, any sense of social media, DM that you can find, and let's chat. Also, remember to follow me on Instagram, Living Percita and Percitas Paradox. And I can't think of anything else. So with that being said, hope you have a wonderful day, and bye-bye.